He belongs to the weakest class but becomes the most powerful demon slayer in this world. When the mana in the atmosphere reaches a critical point, a deep crevice known as the abyss forms, creating a gateway to the void, the realm of demons. The deeper you go, the stronger the creatures you encounter become. One night, an abyss with a depth of 12 emerged, dangerous enough for creatures called lords to appear. At that moment, a seasoned warrior readied his old axe for battle, despite believing he'd never need to use it again. He then instructed his grandson, Noel, to hide in a basement shelter while he bought time until reinforcements from the capital could arrive. Noel objected, noting that no one knew when help would come, meaning his grandfather would fight alone and risk his life. To reassure the young man, the veteran reminded him that his name is Overdeath, the unstoppable demon, and he would protect his grandson even if it meant sacrificing himself. With those words, the warrior headed out to face the beasts in the city. The monsters caused chaos, devouring the people and setting homes ablaze until Overdeath arrived and confronted them directly. Their leader, a lord-class beast, ordered the human to be killed, but the old man radiated confidence, showing he wouldn't be easily defeated. Meanwhile, Noel wept in his hiding place with the household staff. Suddenly, a loud explosion drew everyone's attention. Hours later, when the battle was over, Noel emerged from the shelter to look for his grandfather. The city was destroyed, bodies scattered everywhere, and among them lay Overdeath, gravely injured. As Noel approached, he heard his grandfather say that time catches up with everyone, even him, and that this was the end of his seeker. When battle becomes your purpose, you always walk with death. The old man asked Noel if, knowing this, he still wanted to become a seeker. With tears in his eyes, the boy reaffirmed his wish as the sun rose on the horizon. Overdeath asked his grandson to become an undefeated seeker. Noel vowed to reach that level, and his grandfather told him he had always loved him before taking his last breath. As Noel wept, he remembered his grandfather, Brandon Stolen, a man who defeated a beast from abyssal depth 13 called Cossidus, the Silver Fish. Brandon became the most famous seeker, known as Overdeath, the Undefeated. 2 years later, Noel kept his promise by joining Brandon's group to battle monsters. In a cave, Noel ordered Lloyd and Walter to intercept the enemies while Tanya supported from the rear. Thanks to her blinding spells, the warriors found openings to defeat the enemies at the front while Noel stayed at a safe distance. He was part of the weakest support class, the Eloquent. They were fighting lesser vampires, a species that couldn't use magic but could reproduce endlessly. Noel warned the group to stay alert, as these creatures, even as offshoots, could still tear through a bull with bare hands. One vampire, despite being nearly split in half, attacked Noel, but Tanya quickly dispatched it, reminding the group they had to aim for the head or the vampires would regenerate endlessly. The group pressed on with their journey, but Walter questioned why they didn't head straight for the queen instead of wasting time with her minions. He argued that killing the source would stop the vampires from multiplying. Noel explained that their C-rank team wasn't strong enough to take on the queen directly, but defeating the minions would increase their chances. Though not fully convinced, Walter accepted Noel's choice, trusting the team's hierarchy. As part of Blue Beyond, he knew their only reason for being on a B-rank mission was Noel's skill and charisma. Noel, part of the Eloquent class, a specialized support role known for summoning words to boost others, but lacking in combat ability, reflected on how fragile this class was. Suddenly, the vampire queen appeared, releasing poisonous gas. Lloyd told Tanya to help while he searched for Noel, but the queen knocked her down. Enraged, Walter swung his axe but missed. In the chaos, Noel grew weaker, coughing uncontrollably, and the team struggled without his buffs. Walter shouted, challenging Noel's leadership. The words triggered a memory of Noel's grandfather's death, pushing him to act. With a new determination, Noel grabbed a pistol and charged toward the vampire queen. Without hesitation, Noel activated his eloquent skill and initiated a strategy called Tactician. With this buff, he boosted the group's abilities by 25% and immediately warned the frontline fighters to dodge an incoming area attack. As expected, Walter and Lloyd avoided the strike. The support then used Battle Voice to raise the team's resistance and mana by 25%. Noel instructed Tanya to shield the two warriors while they attacked. The plan worked, and the monster took heavy damage, but Tanya noticed more vampires closing in. Fearing they'd assist the queen, Noel cast Mental Clarity to calm the mage and restore her will to fight. He then set a 74-second timer, announcing he'd handle the lesser foes while the others focused on the queen. Tanya was to keep shielding while Lloyd and Walter dodged and readied their strongest attacks. With a wolf's howl, Noel stunned several vampires and prepared his magic weapon, Silver Flame, to freeze others with Ice Bullet. One vampire broke through, leaving Noel with 1 bullet and 43 seconds on the clock. He calculated the vampire would strike him at the 28-second mark, so he ordered Walter and Lloyd to activate their attack skills. Lloyd had unleashed his Aura Blade and Walter used Deadly Drive. The queen was hit, but just as they began to celebrate, Noel barely dodged the vampire's lethal strike. The talker then realized that when the main body dies, its kind stop moving as well. As the countdown hits 0, the enemy leader's death is confirmed and the lesser vampire loses its mobility. Noel remains unscathed and the mission is accomplished. The group scolds the support for his risky strategy, but the boy smiles, recalling how he once cried to his grandfather for being in the weakest class. Brandon had once compared him to his mother, though noted he had the talent of a seeker, just like his grandfather. Despite being eloquent, Brandon vowed to train him to become the greatest seeker. Before leaving the dungeon, Noel gazes up and declares his trust in his grandfather and his ambition to become the best, even beyond death, despite his weak class. Later, the group reaches Yttria, the capital of the Velnant Empire, thriving through magical engineering. Although vulnerable to the abyss, Velnant's wealth stems from collecting and using beast materials. Seekers are revered for their battles against abyssal creatures. Noel became a seeker at 15 and moved to Yttria to find allies, as eloquence cannot fight alone. His companions include Walter the warrior, Tanya the healer, and Lloyd the swordsman and team leader. Reflecting in a tavern after the mission, Noel considers adding an observer, but decides to focus on gaining experience with his current team. Walter interrupts the boy's thoughts, assuming he's upset about the payment from the mission. He reassures him not to stress over money, saying a seeker shouldn't be so focused on wealth, and that his grandfather would have likely said the same. However, Noel recalls his grandfather said the opposite, that a seeker should have the best gear to face challenges. Walter, a seasoned warrior, claims that notoriety is an honor, and Noel shouldn't be ashamed of his well-made armor. Irritated, Noel ends the conversation arrogantly, which angers Walter, who accuses him of being divisive. Unfazed, Noel provokes him, leading Walter to grab him by the collar, promising to kill him. Noel challenges him to a fight, but Lloyd steps in to stop them. Afterward, the Blue Beyond team meets in a square, lamenting their dwindling funds due to high costs. Lloyd tries to lift their spirits, but Noel points out that well-paying missions are rare. Unlike government-backed clans, their third-party group must pay high commissions to contractors, so Noel suggests using their money to form their own clan. Lloyd reminds them they only have 13 million fills, while the government demands 20 million for that. The eloquent member volunteers to cover the difference because it's vital for them to establish a guild. After all, the Empire promotes the rise of Seekers, as they are considered the people's champions. With Blue Beyond having youth, beauty, and charisma among its ranks, they'll easily attract sponsors. Walter agrees, urging them to accelerate the process since he desires fame, wealth, and women as quickly as possible. Tanya disagrees, feeling the team lacks the experience for such a significant move. This leaves Lloyd with the deciding vote. However, Noel cautions that if they choose not to form the guild, he will leave the group. He's always been clear that his ambition is greater than just starting a clan. He arranges a meeting at his home 2 days later to discuss the specifics. With that settled, everyone departs except for Tanya and Lloyd, who remain in the square together. Later, Noel and Walter discover they've been betrayed by the rest of the team. Both the leader and the healer are secretly leaving the city. Noel later learns through a letter that Lloyd made poor investments, fell into debt, and took the group's money to pay off what he owed before fleeing the city. After reading this, Noel bursts into uncontrollable laughter, which enrages Walter, who is upset by his partner's carefree attitude. Noel explains that he couldn't help but laugh at Lloyd's humiliating downfall. He then asks where Walter got the letter, and Walter says he found it in Lloyd's old room after hearing about a job at the tavern. He went to inform the runaway pair, but when he arrived, the room was empty and the lodging owner gave him the letter. The owner said Lloyd had left the previous night at around 8 p.m., realizing it's now 9:30 a.m. Noel concludes they fled just before the gates closed and have been gone for 12 hours. Noel plans to check which gate they used, assuming they didn't rent a horse to avoid leaving tracks, meaning he and Walter could still catch up. Walter, however, just wants to give Lloyd a good beating. Noel, getting serious, says this betrayal is final. If they find Lloyd and Tanya, it'll likely end in a fight to the death, since both are strong opponents. The emotional ties between the four won't make it any easier. To make things worse, even if Noel and Walter win this dispute, they won't get the money back, which is why the others fled, pretending it was a romantic getaway. Noel vows to repay them 100-fold for what they've done. The duo heads to the Orcs Club, and as soon as they enter, Noel announces to all the Seekers that Lloyd and Tanya, former members of the Blue Beyond, have escaped with the group's money. He offers a 2 million fill reward to anyone who captures them alive. Walter asks why, and Noel explains that it's easier to have multiple people searching for the runaways. Soon, a member of the Lightning Bite group steps up, asks for more details, and sets off with his team. Other patrons also show interest and leave to join the hunt. Later, a man claims to know where Lloyd and Tanya went but won't give the information for free. Suspecting that the man's group can't compete with his former companions, Noel offers 1 million fil, but the informant asks for 1.5 million. Noel holds firm on his offer, knowing the man's desperation. Eventually, the informant agrees and reveals that Lloyd and Tanya were last seen heading down Varley Road, exiting through the south gate, likely bound for Carnot Village. Noel instructs the informant to gather his group and meet him at the south gate. Walter will accompany the informant while Noel attends something before the meeting. Once things are settled, Noel reunites with Walter and the others. Walter asks if Noel is sure he can face Lloyd and Tanya, and Noel confidently replies that he'd destroy them without hesitation, knowing what he'd do if betrayed by friends. Someone from the other group questions if Noel ever trusted his friends, and he responds that trust isn't the same as blind faith. Noel tells Walter he can wait in the city, and Walter grumbles, thinking Noel sees him as weak. Noel realizes Walter has a kind heart, and if he's not fully committed to the fight, it will be tough for him. Later, Lloyd suggests resting for the night, noticing Tanya's worry. He reassures her that Noel won't care once he knows the money is gone. Just then, Noel and his companions appear, subduing the group with a stunned howl. Walter almost hits Lloyd, but Noel calms him, saying he understands Lloyd's motives from the letter. He then asks what happened to the lesser vampire's bounty. Lloyd admits he used it to pay another debt, revealing to Noel that the so-called investments were a lie and that Lloyd wasted the money on gambling. Upon hearing this, Walter grows even more enraged, realizing the man wasted all the money they risked their lives for. In that moment, Lloyd shouts that neither of them understands what it means to be a leader. He didn't want to spend the money, but he was already drowning in debt. Furthermore, he argues his former companions have no right to judge him since they left him to bear the weight of leadership, yet now want the benefits when it's convenient. As Lloyd speaks, Noel kicks him in the face, reminding him that he wanted to be the leader. Now, after gambling away all the group's money, he still plays the victim. While Lloyd begs Noel to stop, Noel continues kicking him. Walter, uncomfortable with the scene, looks away. The others watch in shock as Noel punishes the ex-leader, while Tanya pleads for the violence to end. Noel asks if Tanya wants to take the kicks for her friend, promising not to go easy on her. The protagonist then uses the spell Confess, forcing Tanya to tell the truth. She admits she also gambled with Lloyd and lost the group's money, but blames him for stopping her from making a fortune. After the confession, Noel releases the spell and Tanya complains that using mind control spells for personal gain is illegal. Noel counters, explaining it's allowed when the goal is to get criminal to confess, which had just happened. Tanya and Lloyd are either headed for prison or will face a decade of forced labor, the usual punishment for their crime. With the situation under control, the informant approaches Noel, asking for his reward. When Noel hesitates, the old man grabs his wrist, warning him not to be fooled. Just then, the talker knocks the old man down, calling him a failed seeker with useless gear. In response, the man draws his sword, but Noel quickly punches him in the stomach, nearly knocking him out. This reminds Noel of a similar punch his grandfather once gave him, explaining that it causes a cardiac shock, rendering the opponent unconscious. Unlike other classes, eloquence doesn't allow self-enhancement, so mastering such moves is essential. At that moment, a lavish carriage arrives, carrying Finocchio Barzini, a notorious slaver. He asks Noel if he was late, while the talker notes that Finocchio works for the Empire's top mafia family, known as the Mad Clown for his mix of refinement and cruelty. Finocchio asks about the deal. Noel explains that since Lloyd and Tanya likely had no money, he arranged to sell them to Finocchio to recover the lost funds. Otherwise, they would be handed over to the military police for 10 years of labor, in which only 2% of criminals survive. Finocchio evaluates them at 6 million fil. Noel argues that the amount is way too low, but the slaver insists that the timing is bad since the Church of the Holy Cross is about to announce a decree of poverty. This means the rich will have to cut back on luxuries, and spending too much could attract the church's attention. Noel questions if even the most powerful mafia in the capital can't stand up to the church, and Finocchio confirms it. Despite this, Noel stands firm, pushing the price to 11 million. Finocchio is shocked by the nerve, and the price jumps to 12 million as Noel continues his outburst, eventually reaching 15 million. Finocchio, frustrated, asks if Noel wants to end up pig feet, to which Noel replies that he will tell everyone Finocchio paid 30 million, not 15, making the pair seem highly valuable. Considering they're both attractive and young, Finocchio could sell them later for 90 million. Impressed by Noel's wit, the mobster offers him a position in his family, but Noel refuses and asks what the decision is. Finocchio accepts the deal but warns Noel never to try such a trick again. He also orders the old man to stay silent unless he wants his family to be fed to pigs. As Lloyd is taken away and the slaver receives his money, Tanya begs Noel for mercy, reminding him they were once close. Noel coldly responds that companions don't gamble with others' money, and a traitor will always be a traitor. Desperate, Tanya pleads with Walter, who doesn't help, then insults him before getting into her carriage. Finocchio remarks on how terrifying women can be and bids Noel farewell. The talker pays the elderly seeker, who insults him by saying Noel is only good for offering enhancements. Noel fires back, calling the old man's insults as pathetic as he is, and suggests he take lessons from Tanya. As Noel turns to leave, the man calls him a devil. Noel reflects that seekers hunt monsters to survive, so being called a devil by one is the highest form of disdain. In his case, Noel intends to wear that title proudly, striving to become the strongest in the world. The next day, Noel gives a bottle of liquor to Walter as a farewell gift. The night before in the tavern, Walter had decided to stop being a seeker due to his emotional struggles. Although Noel tried to convince him otherwise, Walter had already made up his mind. After Noel left, Walter wondered if the talker even had a heart, especially since Tanya loved him, yet he never cared. In the end, all Noel desired was strength, which made him unique in their group. Walter took a sip, calling Noel his best friend. Meanwhile, the talker reflected on starting over, like a snake shedding its skin to grow stronger, planning to rebuild the blue beyond. The following day in the capital, the girl finally finds Noel. At the same time, Noel is busy interviewing potential recruits for his clan, but Wolf keeps interrupting, insisting that any worthy seeker is already part of a clan. Noel tells him to stop being a pest, but Wolf, confident in his wisdom, invites Noel to join his group Lightning Bite. Wolf boasts about the group's talent, including Licia and Elvin Archer, and says they're among the most promising C-rank teams. He also argues Noel would earn more with them than by starting his own group. Licia tells Wolf to stop pestering Noel, teasing him about a florist who rejected him. Despite Wolf's grumbling, Noel agrees to join on one condition. He becomes the leader. Most of the group is fine with it, except Wolf, who founded the clan. Just then, a girl named Alma quietly approaches Noel at a tavern, impressing him with her stealth. After claiming to be 21, the Lightning Bite members surround her, asking personal questions like her hobbies and favorite books. Unfazed, Alma calmly answers every question until Noel inquires about her class and rank. She reveals she's a reconnaissance class, rank C. Noel realizes that having a recon expert, along with a skilled archer in detection, offers a significant advantage in the abyss. Growing more curious, he asks why she wants to become a seeker, but Alma clarifies that she doesn't. She's only interested in Noel because he's Overdeath's grandson. Her grandfather once fought him and lost an arm in the battle. Worried, Noel asks if she seeks revenge, but she dismisses the idea, saying it's pointless. She was merely curious about the kind of seeker Overdeath's grandson would become. Noel apologizes if his grandfather caused any harm, but Alma brushes it off, revealing her grandfather passed away last month. Noel asks for his name, and she reveals it's Alcor Judicali, shocking everyone around them. Noel recalls that Alcor was a founding member of the Assassin Society, a feared group of hired killers. Just then, Logan approaches Alma, sarcastically saying her claim of being Alcor's granddaughter must be a joke. Wolf steps in, saying it's none of Logan's business, but Logan continues, explaining that seeker taverns have unwritten rules where only those of certain prestige are allowed. Alma admits she was unaware, and Logan warns that regulars often enforce these rules harshly. Alma interrupts, asking Noel what exactly defines a seeker's prestige. Noel responds that to begin, rank and class come afterward. Anyone can recognize strength. Alma concludes she just needs to defeat this Ludmouth for recognition. Logan, angered by the challenge, swings at her, but Alma dodges with lightning speed, landing a strike on his face, followed by a downward kick to his head. Without delay, Noel hires her without addressing the offer directly. Alma's stomach rumbles, and she admits she's hungry. Later, while enjoying a fried pastry Noel gave her, Alma remarks it's the best thing she's tasted in the mountains. The boy admits he doubted her claim about being Alcor's granddaughter. Alma responds that the moment she saw Noel, she knew he was Overdeath's grandson because his eyes showed a fierce determination. Alma recalls her grandfather's advice to avoid fighting Overdeath as he was unpredictable and unbeatable. Noel's eyes reminded her of that. Noel asks if Alma had been training to become an assassin in the mountains. She confirms she was advancing from reconnaissance to assassin, though she hasn't officially reached rank B yet. Noel wonders why she didn't join the Assassin Society given her skills. Alma explains she intended to until a training duel against another assassin. Though her opponent had potential, she easily dodged and countered, eventually holding a dagger to his chest. The man, desperate, reminded her it was just a test and mentioned an old lesson from her grandfather. The strongest survive, and the weak sacrifice themselves to the god of hell. The man argued that such beliefs were outdated, belonging to a time before the new leader took over the organization. Those dark traditions were gone, but that didn't matter to Alma. she was raised differently. Just as she lifted her dagger to finish him, Simon Gregory, the new leader, intervened. Because of this, Alma was expelled for holding onto outdated values. The organization had changed, now focusing more on espionage than executions, aiming to become a state institution. Noel felt anxious knowing this story, but Alma reassured him, calling herself his older sister and promising to protect him. Later, as they walk through the forest, Noel asks what Alma knows about support classes and enhancements. Alma explained that though weak alone, they can turn the tide of battle. Noel noted that buffs have a wide range of effects like the Talker Assault command, which can end a fight instantly but also risk the group's safety if misused. The key is for the enhancer to assess the entire battle and use commands to maximize the team's potential, especially since a talker can't boost themselves, making them dependent on others. Alma remarks that Noel is capable of handling the task, to which he replies that if he wasn't, he would have died long ago. Noel then asks Alma to catch a mutated monster, since the flora and fauna have changed due to the abyss. Although these creatures aren't as dangerous as wild beasts, they shouldn't be underestimated. Alma's target today is an iron rabbit, a horn killer rabbit. After receiving a buff from Noel, the talker, Alma feels she doesn't need help. Noel explains that as a recon class, Alma likely has the Excel ability, which boosts her speed to 5 times normal. However, it took her time to adapt, or she would have injured herself. Knowing her body must adjust to the buff, Noel wants to test how well Alma handles his support spells. He casts Battle Voice and Tactician on her, asking her to push Excel to its limit, increasing her speed to 6 times the norm. The test is to catch at least 1 rabbit in under 10 seconds. Alma sets out and catches several rabbits, returning with 13 in just 8.6 seconds. Impressed by how quickly she adapted, Noel concludes the training is a success and feels confident they're ready for their mission. He then reveals a letter from a nearby town where they had cleared out monsters. A group of thieves was spotted near Min's village, marking the first mission for the newly reformed Lu Beyond. The team soon heads to the village by carriage, much to Alma's delight as she's never ridden in one before. Noel quickly dampens her excitement, warning that the ride will grow tedious as the journey to Minsk is long. With time to kill, Noel explains the various tasks seekers handle, such as monster hunts, criminal hunts, treasure hunts, and mythic hunts. He adds that dealing with criminals, like in this mission, is usually the Lord's duty, but they can be slow to act, often requesting help from seekers. This contract comes from a struggling farming village, so they likely won't receive any reward, but the mission will be a test. Alma's eagerness to protect the villagers reminds Noel of a past experience with his former group. During the journey, the group stops in Eudora for the night, where Alma complains about being stiff. The next morning, they plan to swap carriages and continue to Minsk. Finding lodging proves difficult as all rooms are booked, but after much effort, they finally secure one. Noel lets Alma have the bed while he sleeps on the floor. Alma inquires why they can't share a bed, a question that unsettles the boy, causing him to firmly hold onto his decision as he exits the bath shirtless. His companion comments that it requires immense effort to sculpt a physique like his. But no matter how much Noel pushes himself, he'll never match the frontline fighters, because effort alone doesn't surpass innate talent. If Noel were a warrior defying death, he might have become the ultimate seeker, but that's not the reality. As he listens to her words, Noel asks her to close her eyes, and without warning, he flicks her forehead. Later, as he lies down to sleep, he reflects on Alma's remarks, recognizing that he understands her meaning all too well, recalling how in his youth he ended up with the weakest class and needed his grandfather's guidance just to become somewhat strong. The next day, the mayor greets the Blue Beyond group after a year, but is surprised to see only 2 members. Noel explains that the other 3 retire, leaving just him and Alma. Still, he assures the mayor they can handle the thieves. Inside, the mayor's wife serves tea until Noel spots a young girl hiding. The mayor introduces her as Chelsea, who had been eager to see the group again. Noel jokes that she must be upset their former leader isn't here, though secretly she admires Noel more. Noel reviews the mission, noting the letter mentioned 20 thieves who attacked a nearby village, causing casualties and kidnapping women. He asks if their hideout is known, and the mayor says it's in a rocky area in the eastern forest. Noel requests 500,000 fil for the job, and the mayor surprisingly pays part of it up front, which startles Noel as he expected bargaining. Looking at the money, Noel senses the mayor struggled to gather the sum but reassures him the mission will be completed. Later, Alma remarks that the mayor, despite being with his wife and daughter, was always looking at her you-know-what. Suddenly, the mayor's daughter runs up, asking if they will really defeat the bandits. With a friendly smile, Noel Stalin reassures the girl that he'll put an end to the nightmare soon. Excited, she cheers him on and shows off the bamboo helicopter she's holding. Noel recalls teaching her how to make it, and she proudly adds that hers fly higher than the others. She also treasures the helicopter he gave her. Embarrassed, she runs off, wishing for his safe return. Afterward, Alma teases that Noel has a cute face, but is a scoundrel for charming the girl. Annoyed, Noel tells her to shut up and then move on. By nightfall, they arrive at the bandits' hideout and realize there are likely twice as many as the mayor mentioned. Observing carefully, Noel recognizes the leader as Gordo, a B-rank bandit with a 2 million fil bounty, skilled in reconnaissance. Noel asks Alma if she can take him down. She says a one-on-one fight would be easy, but the problem is if the others gang up on her. Noel reassures her, saying he'll handle the rest. Though Alma is skilled at concealing her presence, Noel reveals he's already planned for that. Alma stealthily infiltrates the camp, and with their linked thoughts, Noel receives updates. Once she's in position near the leader's tent, Noel unleashes a stun howl, paralyzing all the bandits nearby. He orders Alma to take down Gordo, and she swiftly pierces the tent, driving her dagger into the leader's torso. With the boss confirmed dead, the next task is to keep the enemies occupied until Noel arrives. One by one, Alma takes down the henchman, and Noel notices she seems to enjoy it, a habit that could be a future problem. As Alma counts her kills, Stalin shows up, announcing he's joining the fight. He throws a flash grenade, blinding the foes, and follows with flame bullets that start a large fire, quickly engulfing the bandits. Later, the mayor greets Blue Beyond with joy, asking if the bandits were defeated. Stalin confirms the kills and shows the leader's body, but spares the mayor from seeing inside for now. The eloquent one then requests the rest of his payment, but the mayor invites them to dine first, saying his wife and daughter have prepared a feast. Chelsea mentions wanting to become an amazing seeker like Noel and wonders if she can do it. Stalin replies that any adult can and suggests she enroll in the capital's training school, a 2-year course for frontliners and 1 year for support roles. However, she'd need to cover living expenses. Noel suggests she could start as a support to gain experience. Enthralled, Chelsea asks if she could join Blue Beyond once she's strong, and Noel replies that if she becomes skilled and still looks up to him, they'll fight together without a doubt. The mayor and his wife bring out a bottle of wine, supposedly worth 100,000 fiddle, to celebrate. The man had saved it for a special occasion like this. As Noel picks up his glass, he assumes the wine is of high quality from its color and smell, but insists the host should take the first sip. The mayor hesitates, fumbling his words, so Stalin bluntly asks him to drink the wine he poisoned. The mayor is shocked and asks why. Noel calmly explains that if the Blue Beyond members were dead, the mayor wouldn't have to pay them and he could steal their belongings. The mayor grows nervous and demands proof. Noel presents 3 reasons. First, a man who lies about bandit numbers to lower the reward wouldn't open such an expensive bottle out of kindness. Second, the wine smells cheap and spoiled, meaning it's been open for a while, unlike the mayor's claim. And third, Noel sensed the mayor's malicious intent as soon as the wine was mentioned. Alma asks how the mayor thought they'd fall for such a bad trick, especially since their class builds up poison resistance. The mayor loses his composure but insists no one has proof. Noel urges him to drink first if the wine is safe. The man knocks over the glass and yells for the guests to leave. At that moment, Noel uses his confessed magic to force him to reveal the truth. He admits to poisoning the wine to kill Blue Beyond after dealing with the bandits, planning to steal their valuables and gear. Chelsea is shocked and asks if her father really meant to kill her and Noel, but before he can answer, Stalin strikes him in the right eye. The mayor pleads for mercy and promises to pay the 300,000 fil he owes, but Noel demands every coin he has. When the mayor says he has debts, Noel looms over him, threatening to blind his other eye. The mayor screams that he borrowed the money from the Gambino Mafia, who will kill him if he's late on payment, but Noel shows no sympathy and continues to intimidate him. Panicked, Chelsea offers 800,000 fil from the family's savings, despite her father's warning that the Gambinos will kill them all if they don't have the money. Ignoring her father, she hands the cash to Noel. Satisfied, Noel calls Alma to leave as Chelsea angrily cries that she hates all seekers. Noel ignores her and walks away. On the way back, Alma mentions how hard life is for seekers. Noel asks if she's tired of it, but she says no, though she wonders if he's truly okay with everything that happened. He coldly reassures her that he's Alma and comments that losing the admiration of a girl who once cared for him is unfortunate, no matter the perspective. He adds that if he feared letting people down, he'd have stayed isolated on an island. Just then, they spot an airship in the sky bearing the Goat Dinner clan symbol. Noel explains that this symbol shows the clan holds 3-star regalia, meaning they are recognized by the Empire. He further clarifies that there are 7 regalia clans ranked by achievements, 4 with 3 stars, 2 with 2 stars, and 1 with 1 star. Owning an airship is one of the privileges of a regalia clan. In fact, that airship probably carries some of society's most brilliant, wealthy minds. Noel's goal is to reach that level of prestige within a year. Hearing this, Alma remembers an old test where Simon Gregory asked if she killed Alcor Judicali, the former leader of the Assassin Society. She admits it was easy since he was already very old. Simon notes that Alcor sought power but couldn't surpass the Overdeath, a failure that consumed him. He then asks if Alma is truly Alcor's daughter, and she reveals that she was born from a woman Alcor kidnapped. Alcor never wanted children. He wanted to create an invincible version of himself to erase his defeat to the Overdeath. Due to this illusion, all of Alma's siblings died except her. Despite her students' supposed success on this insane journey, Simon informs her she no longer belongs in the Assassin Society because it's not as violent as it once was. Alma is crushed, realizing she spent 21 years training for something that no longer matters. As a consolation, Simon tells her that the Overdeath's grandson, Noel Stalin, has become a refined seeker in the capital, the weakest of all classes. Remembering this, Alma embraces her teammate, promising to always fight by his side. Later, we're taken to a public restroom where a man is dragged into a stall after knocking out an officer. The assailant grabs his hat, transforming into the fallen man as he leaves. Another officer asks if the rookie's stomach has settled, and he confirms before returning to his post guarding a death row prisoner named Hugo Capilia, the puppeteer infamous for instilling terror in the Empire's capital. Meanwhile, Noel completes 2 laps around the castle walls, carrying a barrel of rocks that add weight to his exercise, which has a 2-hour limit to finish. Despite exhaustion, Noel's resolve never wavers. Years ago, trained by his grandfather, he faced relentless discipline to prepare for the beasts that won't wait. The rigorous training began when he vowed to become a seeker, and his once gentle grandfather became an unyielding mentor, enforcing a brutal routine. As a talker, Noel can't gain strength on his own, so he must endure. Even amid hardship, he persisted, occasionally sharing a rare smile with his grandfather. Now, years later, Noel reflects in the bath on Alma's words, with a physique honed by that grueling past. During that encounter, she praised the young man's physique, but lamented that no matter how much Noel trains, he'll never match the frontline fighters. Hard work, she claimed, doesn't measure up to natural talent. She expressed her desire to touch him, but without his consent, threw him onto the bed. Noel wanted to put an end to this, but the former Assassin Society member used her strength to stay on top. Mockingly, she joked that Noel could outmatch Alma, his imaginary older sister, which was getting old for Noel. Since he couldn't overpower her, she teased him for looking cute when desperate, even asking for a kiss. Getting no response, she moved closer, forcing Noel to use a firm headbutt. Alma complained that headbutting a woman wasn't proper, saying a light flick would have been enough. After her unwanted insistence, she blamed Noel for being too cute, which he didn't understand. Seeing a couple linking arms nearby, Alma grabbed Noel's arm without warning, announcing they were on a date and asking where they were headed. Noel replied that they'd start at the Assessor's Guild, where one could evaluate their class and climb ranks. Inside, he explained that an appraiser, a specialized class often taken by gnomes with an affinity for it, could assess their abilities, though they couldn't rise and rank themselves. Noel finds these gnomes a bit strange as they seem to exist solely to study classes. He asks Alma if she has the mark needed to climb and rank, and she explains that she does. She adds that the mark usually appears on the chest or back of the hand, but she hopes Noel's will appear on his back, which is a more fitting place. As they chat, a nearby gnome congratulates an adventurer on their rank up, and the young man can already feel the power flowing through him. Noel wonders if Alma will choose to become an assassin, but she hasn't decided and is open to suggestions. He's concerned that her choice should suit any new members joining the Blue Beyond. Alma asks if he really plans to recruit more, and Noel explains they'll need at least one more member to face the Abyss. Noel then takes Alma to a trusted dwarven blacksmith, who notes the striking appearance of Blue Beyond's new member. Afterward, they visit a bookstore specializing in skill books, and Alma, a C-rank scout, asks for a suitable item. She wonders if Noel will pick something for himself, but he explains he'll head to the section for talkers. Before leaving, he firmly reminds his companion that their budget is 1 million fil, urging her to buy books only and avoid wasting money. Soon enough, Alma returns, hugging a massive teddy bear. Seeing the leader's frustration, she quickly explains that she hasn't overspent. She purchased the skill book Armor Piercing, which halves a target's defense, for 800,000 fil, and then snagged the bear for just 200,000 fil, hitting exactly 1 million. Meanwhile, Noel, hoping to get the Exorcism book, a skill that banishes the undead instantly, finds it's far beyond his reach at 30 million fil. While considering his next steps, Noel notices a figure moving strangely nearby. He excuses himself and follows the person to a secluded alley, where he finds Loki. Annoyed about the dirty location, Noel listens as Loki explains he's in danger and had to meet in secret. Loki then hands over the intel Noel wanted about a prisoner he plans to recruit for Blue Beyond. Convinced of the prisoner's innocence, Noel paid Loki to investigate and uncover the truth. Loki thinks Noel is out of his mind for selling his former allies as slaves and recruiting a death sentence prisoner, but the protagonist takes it as flattery and shifts the topic. The talker commends Noel's work, remarking that it's no surprise he's known as Faithless for his ability to mimic others. Loki assures Noel there's no place he can't infiltrate. After Noel pays the investigator, Loki shares extra information. A harmful substance is circulating, known for causing uncontrollable rage and a spike in stabbings. Dealers of this drug are linked to the Luciano family, even though the area is Gambino territory, under Albert Gambino's control. Meanwhile, Alma eats her steak with an odd, almost hateful expression until an old friend appears unexpectedly. Back to Noel, he recalls the late Gambino boss, a respected figure even by Finocchio Barzini, who would never have allowed the spread of such a deadly drug. Observing a young man with a foreign face, Noel assumes he's an immigrant with lost dreams and ambitions, now forced to beg. Saddened, Noel leaves him a coin only for the beggar to call after him, saying that he dropped it. The man warns Noel that the area isn't safe for a girl like her, which makes Noel frown. Mistaking her reaction for a stomach ache, he then realizes Noel is actually a man, much to his surprise. Noel makes it clear he wouldn't put a coin touched by someone dirty back into his pocket, then starts to leave. However, the stranger chases after him only to receive a swift kick to the stomach, knocking him down. Noel asserts that the boy should know his place, saying he's worth less than the coin, which seems to trigger a memory in the stranger, making him see someone else in Noel. The stranger then adopts a fighting stance, and Noel realizes he's no amateur. They exchange blows, with Noel dodging and hurling the stranger against the wall. Impressed, the stranger asks if Noel is a ninja. Noel deduces that ninjas exist only in Far Eastern countries and assumes the man is from there. The stranger then unleashes a powerful aura, prompting Noel to consider recruiting him for Blue Beyond. The stranger, meanwhile, dismisses Noel's talker class as they prepare to fight seriously, until a small man named Miguel arrives, calling the stranger Koga and reminding him to behave. Alma, watching, explains to her friend that she has 4 options for ranking up as a scout. The frontline options are assassin and torturer, and for the rear guard, pursuer and bandit. The evaluation guild noted that she has more affinity as an assassin or pursuer, but her role will depend on the rest of the team, as Noel mentioned. Her friend imagines Noel is recruiting new members since she saw a Blue Beyond poster about it. While the two talk, Miguel commands his ring to painfully restrain Koga, leading Noel to realize it's a dark item binding Koga to Miguel, an illegal vow of subordination, with rare exceptions. Miguel then asks Noel why a beautiful girl like her is in the area. Noel then kicks Miguel aside and aims his gun at the man to question him. Miguel reveals he floods Soldaland, a southern city, after running an illegal fighting ring for the D'Alembert family and stealing from them. Seeking refuge in the imperial capital beyond the D'Alembert's reach, he bought and trained Koga as a gladiator. Miguel now plans to open a new combat market in the underworld. Alma tells her friend that she's strong enough to stand alone with Noel, and any newcomers at Blue Beyond would face certain death. Contemplating everything, Noel wonders if he should kill Miguel to free Koga, when suddenly, a gunshot rings out. Noel may be ruthless, but he's not a killer. He fired a warning shot, sparing his target's life, but if they don't leave in the next 10 seconds, Noel won't miss again. Terrified, the man scrambles up, nudges Kuba, and they make a run for it. Though Noel would have liked Kuba's strength, the fact that Kuba hasn't eliminated the gremlin holding him back shows a lack of resolve. Not someone Noel wants on his team. A bit later, Noel returns to the cafe where Licia greets him. Surprised, he remarks he didn't invite her and refuses to pay for her food. Alma, annoyed, explains that Licia stayed to keep her company since Noel left her alone for so long. Grudgingly, Noel agrees to treat them both just this once. As he sits, Licia asks if he found any suitable party members, guessing he'd been recruiting. While he'd hoped to, Noel says no one met his standards. Right now, he has other priorities and asks if she knows about the drug currently circulating. Licia has heard of it but knows little. Noel explains that it has a dangerous rage-inducing effect and is spreading unchecked. He warns her to be cautious, leaving Licia surprised. Noel rarely shows concern for others. Noel says he's just sharing information since he's on good terms with Licia's group, so Licia thanks him and gets up to rejoin her party. Before leaving, she invites Alma to visit a favorite sweet shop, not as a fellow seeker, but as a friend. Alma is thrilled, but Noel isn't interested in forming any deep bond with Licia, so he tells her to hurry up and go. Once Licia departs, Noel starts reflecting on the rumors of the uncontrolled drugs spreading beyond the capital. Meanwhile, Miguel the Gremlin has been captured by Albert Gambino. Though Albert usually has no interest in Miguel, the D'Alembert family wants revenge for Miguel's betrayal and has enlisted the Gambino's help. Miguel panics knowing that Albert is a ruthless psychopath who collects the skulls of his enemies. Albert decides it's too boring to hand Miguel over to the D'Alemberts and says he has something fun planned, skinning Miguel alive and turning him into a doll. Terrified, Miguel tries to reason with Albert, who reveals he's also planning to skin Kuga. Kuga hears Albert threaten to skin them alive, but he's unfazed since he lost all hope long ago and would welcome death even in such a brutal way. Before Albert can start, however, a debt collector interrupts, bringing in the chief of Mint's village, who failed to pay on time. The chief rambles, explaining that while he gathered the money to pay, a seeker named Noel stole it without reason, even mocking Albert by calling him Gambino. Furious at the disrespect, Albert decides Noel must pay and, as a reward for the chief's honesty, grants him an extension, but with penalties. Albert coldly declares he'll take the chief's right arm as partial payment. Terrified, the chief freezes and Albert commands Kuba to handle the dismemberment, noting Kuba's skill should make it an easy task, even with a stick. Kuba hesitates, but when Miguel yells for him to obey, he moves to carry it out. Just as he's about to act, Albert stops him, saying there's something he wants to do first. Albert grabs a purple crystal drug and takes a bite to get high, as he enjoys violence more when he's out of his mind. Now, with altered senses, he gives Kuba permission to cut off the chief's hand. When the chief doubts Kuba could do it with just a stick, Kuga strikes before he can finish his sentence, severing the chief's hand. The chief screams in agony and Albert revels in it. Miguel sees an opportunity and offers Kuga to Albert to gain favor. Albert accepts and Kuba is taken to a different room to change out of his rags, revealing his tragic past. Kuga's father was a wealthy businessman and his mother, a beautiful woman, lived a happy life until tragedy struck. Kuga's father was attacked and his mother suffered terrible abuse. When Kohu was born 9 months later, his father resented him and his mother, seeing the contempt in her husband's eyes, couldn't bear it any longer, tragically ending her life. Years pass and Kuga's father had become a drunkard, broken by his wife's death. Despite this, Kuga still longed for his father's love and tried to be helpful. Yet his presence often infuriated his father, and others in the household wished he had died with his mother. Growing up in a home where he was unwanted and mocked deeply affected Kuga's self-worth. One morning, he awoke to find himself on a boat, realizing he'd likely been sold as a slave by his family. There, Kuga met Miguel, who took him to an illegal fighting ring. When Kuga won his fights, Miguel praised him, Kuga's first experience of approval. However, he soon realized Miguel only valued him for the money he could make. In the present, Kuga completes his preparations and heads out on his first mission under Albert's command. That evening, Noel meets Loki in an abandoned church, where Loki warns him that the Gambino family is targeting him. He explains that the chief of Mint's village lied to Albert Gambino about Noel's supposed disrespect, leading Albert to hire an assassin to go after him. Noel thinks it's absurd for Albert to order a hit based on flimsy evidence, but Albert is almost unhinged, so a rational person could never understand his actions. Noel wonders how a man like Albert could lead the Gambino family, but the answer is simple: nepotism. The previous head only had one son, so despite Albert's flaws, he inherited the position without earning it. Suddenly, Noel hears armor clanking, signaling someone is approaching. He realizes Loki has betrayed him to the Gambinos. Loki apologizes, explaining he had to cooperate or risk death himself. His backup plan is to flee the country afterward to escape the Gambinos, which sounds reasonable to Noel, except Loki hasn't considered that Noel could just shoot him now. Though disappointed, Noel is reluctant, as he genuinely liked Loki. Strangely, Loki doesn't resist and even seems ready to die, saying he now realizes he compromised not just Noel, but also his own pride. Moved, Noel chooses to forgive Loki and assures him he won't need to run. Noel himself plans to bring down the Gambino family. Loki is momentarily shocked, but quickly bursts into laughter, finding Noel's forgiveness completely out of character. Nevertheless, he's grateful for the second chance and silently promises to repay him. For now, however, he isn't much help in a fight. As Loki exits, Noel faces his attacker, drinking a battle potion to prepare. The potion gives a 10-minute boost to his physical power, though it leaves him exhausted afterward. When the attacker comes into view, Noel is startled to see it's Kuga, who is equally surprised that Noel is his target. Noel congratulates Kuga on joining the Gambino family as an assassin, a big leap from his days as a street fighter, and proposes they pick up their unfinished fight. He points his gun, but Kuga hesitates as he still feels indebted to Noel. Yet he must follow his orders and announces himself formally as Kuga, the slicing swordsman, challenging Noel to a duel. Though Noel finds it foolish for Kuga to reveal his identity, he respects his pride and introduces himself in return. The fight begins as Noel fires, but Kuga dodges and closes in on him in an instant. Just as Noel is about to be struck, he quickly uses a wire to escape. Now that Kuga is no longer weakened or hungry, his speed and accuracy have significantly improved since his last fight with Noel. Still, Noel has a plan to defeat him. He fires a flame bullet at Kuga, and although Kuga dodges, he gets caught in the flames. Noel thinks this will injure him, but Kuga emerges unscathed by slicing the air around him to create a protective barrier. Kuga then leaps forward, forcing Noel into close combat. Noel aims a low blow, but Kuga dodges, calling it a cowardly move. Despite this, Noel is determined to win by any means necessary. He grabs a flashbang to blind Kuga, hoping to land a finishing blow, but before he can strike, Kuga uses a special move, launching a flurry of slashes that corner Noel on a ledge. Even Noel's stun howl fails to stop Kuga, who cuts through it, sending Noel plummeting. Soon after the speaker awakens to find a sword aimed at his face, Kuga stands over him, victor of their duel, yet modestly acknowledging his opponent's great skill. He admits Noel is the best rival he has ever fought. This prompts Noel to ask why Koga hasn't delivered the final blow, as Gambino surely ordered his death. Shaken by the question, Koga hesitates until Noel grips the blade and urges him to stop feeling sorry for his enemies. Noel warns Koga that if he lets him go, Gambino will never forgive him. In Noel's view, nothing is worth more than one's own life, and he believes Koga should stop risking it for his foes. Confused, Koga senses that Noel is somehow offering his life to protect Koga. Though he sees himself unworthy of such honor, Noel abruptly says their time is up. Just then, Alma emerges from the shadows, declaring herself the only one who can bring Noel down. Noel, shedding his usual pride, welcomes her, though he begins to feel the effects of a potion wearing off. Alma asks if she should kill Koga, and Noel agrees. After her first strike, Koga despairs, insisting he does not want to fight a woman. Alma finds it amusing that she sees herself as stronger than the man, but Koga disagrees, arguing that his opponent's surprise attack failed to kill him, proving his superiority. Alma comments on her foe's audacity and, using her incredible speed, kicks the air for momentum, launching more blades to catch him off guard. However, he counters with his cherry blossoms gone mad technique, deflecting each blade, which impresses Noel. Koga remains calm and blocks further attacks with remarkable precision by enhancing his senses, keeping his eyes closed. Noel realizes two things. First, his flash grenade failed because of the opponent's ability. Second, there are heights he'll never reach. Determined, he vows never to hesitate or complain again, resolving to control the strongest to become the strongest. Alma, meanwhile, acknowledges the enemy's power but vows to kill him, using her blood poison technique. Koga then stops holding back, promising not to treat his foe as a woman, and readies his lethal move. But before the fight resumes, Noel fires a flare, ordering Alma and Koga to retreat, as the flare will summon the military police. He warns that if Koga is arrested, Albert Gambino will demand consequences. Koga acknowledges he dislikes taking orders, but agrees Noel is right. Before he leaves, the talker gives him a message for his boss. Later, when Koga returns to the most feared mafioso in the region, he is confronted by his former master, Miguel. Gambino explains that Miguel took responsibility for Koga's failure, but believes Koga won't fail again. The boss warns there is no one left to cover for him. Assuring success, Koga is dismissed but delivers Noel's message for Gambino. My motto is to repay 1,000 times to friends and foes alike. I will support the Gambino family unless you're too cowardly to face me. Hearing this, Gambino questions if Noel truly said that. When Koga confirms, the mafia boss stabs his dagger into the table, vowing to kill Noel, and orders Leos to gather the men. As the meeting ends, Leos accuses Koga of acting out to spite Miguel. Koga, however, clarifies it wasn't about Miguel, whom he sees as a poor master. Instead, he admits admiration for Noel's strength, even though Noel, from the weakest class, won't surpass Koga's level. Still, he respects Noel's fierce determination. Leos misunderstands and assumes Gambino's servant is infatuated with him, but the swordsman quickly corrects him, stating that Koga isn't attracted to him. Instead, Leos clarifies that Koga is in love with Noel and would follow him anywhere, as Gambino's assistant claims. Leos believes Koga will realize this eventually. When Leos asks the swordsman if he's ever felt this way, Leos admits it happened to him long ago. Later, Leos and another thug join Gambino to search for Noel at the tavern. Gambino notes that Noel looks more feminine. While at Alma's table, she quietly mentions the rankings of the men present and that there are more armed outside. Gambino dismissively drinks Noel's wine, calling it sour and assuming the boy is financially struggling. Unbothered, Noel warns Gambino not to drink what wasn't offered, stating it will harm his reputation. Albert orders Noel to stay quiet, but Noel challenges him and tells him to move before he ruins his meal. Gambino considers punishing Noel, but only reacts when his men are nearby. Albert threatens the tavern owner, but Logan intervenes, stating no trouble will be tolerated. Gambino questions the man's authority, and the man reveals he knows about the feud between Gambino and Noel. He warns that the Seeker's Tavern is off-limits for settling such matters, as they protect their reputation. Gambino feels disrespected, but Logan assures him they respect his identity, they just prioritize their honor. Furious, Gambino orders everyone killed, but Leos warns that Albert would face consequences from Don Luciano, especially since the Gambino family is already in trouble. Albert hesitates and Noel mocks him, calling him a coward unable to challenge Luciano. Noel reveals that if Albert had drunk his wine, he would have been poisoned, a trick Noel had set up from the start. Panicked, Albert rushes out for a doctor, but Noel tells him it's too late. With Gambino gone, Leos compliments Noel's smooth talk and admits the poisoning story was a lie. Koba acknowledges that the young man has determination in his eyes, leaving money on the table and warning that he'll ignore what happens if Noel takes the offer. Noel asks what if he refuses, and the family's employee threatens to kill him on the spot. Noel agrees to leave the capital immediately. As he exits the tavern, Logan asks if he's really going, and Noel replies that his secret career is over. Outside, Alma celebrates the plan's success, but thinks it's too soon to celebrate. He plans to return to the capital in a week for further investigation while training in the mountains to defeat the swordsmen next time. They part ways, with Noel promising to take down the Gambino family. A week later, Albert confronts the people in Etreia, ordering his men to kill the enemies, but they refuse. The family head demands an explanation from Leos, just as Noel laughs, revealing that Albert's foolishness cost him the right to lead. During the week, Albert's men had grown frustrated with his orders, some of them revolting after a cruel killing. They no longer respected Albert, who had lost their loyalty, and they turned to Leos, supporting him as the new boss. One day, Noel joined a conversation and spotted an item in the hand of a henchman, sparking rage as it reminded him of a painful memory. He gave Leos Albert's birth certificate after asking Loki to obtain it. The imposter discovered that the current Gambino boss's mother was actually married to another man, revealing that the story of Albert being the former boss's illegitimate son was a lie. While it was true they had an affair, it occurred before her marriage, and Albert's birth date made it nearly impossible for him to be the former boss's son. Nonetheless, the late boss accepted Albert as a tribute to his past love. Noel then requested Loki to investigate the former boss's death. With this, Leos accused Albert of poisoning the boss, who had seemed to die of natural causes. Noel added that the treating doctor had disclosed everything. The speaker believes that Albert's exaggerated reaction, thinking he'd been poisoned, exposed his true nature. Seizing this moment, the speaker skillfully presses the current head of the Gambino family for information. Leos then announces he can no longer follow Albert, citing Albert's lack of morals and heart, which everyone in the family finds disgraceful. Accepting this, Albert claims that the old boss named him as successor, but Leos, frustrated, reminds him that Albert was the one who poisoned the boss. Still, following the old boss's wishes, Leos states that Albert will become head of the family if he defeats Noel in a duel or appoints a representative to fight for him. Albert refuses, seeing himself as the rightful leader, until Finocchio Barzini arrives, calling Albert a disgrace and saying he's here to witness the duel. Noel believes he contacted Finocchio personally to seek revenge on Gambino for tarnishing his family's name. If Noel defeats Albert in their duel, he will receive 50 million fil from Finocchio. Albert desperately protests, claiming he never agreed to a duel, but Barzini, losing patience, grabs his face and tells him to face reality if he truly wants to stay in the family. Accepting there's no way out, Albert asks what happens if he wins. Noel assures him he will remain the family head and that he will personally ask the Seekers to overlook the tavern incident. Left with no choice, Albert calls upon Koga, as Noel predicted, since Koga's oath of loyalty prevents betrayal. Alma offers to fight for Noel, but he insists on handling it himself. When Alma doubts his chances, Noel replies she has much to learn. Facing Koga, Noel confidently declares third time's the charm. His demeanor so assured it unsettles his opponent. Koga suspects Noel has a hidden advantage, even his confidence despite past defeats. Noel makes it clear he won't be branded a coward this time. Barzini declares the start of the duel, and Noel begins with an ice bullet, countered by his opponent's mad cherry blossoms. Outside the fight, Albert Gambino observes, believing the talkative Noel is weak and unlikely to win. The battlefield soon becomes an icy arena, isolating spectators as Noel's ammunition freezes the area. In direct combat, Noel struggles, especially as Koba uses the IA flash technique to amplify his attacks. Knowing close combat is risky, Noel gambles on deception. Claiming he's out of bullets, he discards his pistol, draws a dagger, and taunts Koga with an odd remark about orange peels removing grease stains. The unexpected statement momentarily unsettles Koga, giving Noel an opening. However, during his charge, Noel is struck in the arm, barely avoiding severe injury but managing to wrest the sword from Koga's grasp. Noel's cunning strategy reveals his madness, prompting Koga to retrieve his sword with lightning speed and attack furiously. Despite Koga's efforts, Noel turns the tide. As Koga strikes with his katana, he triggers Noel's ice capsules, nearly freezing his body. Seizing the moment, Noel leaps over him and uses the Thundering Roar skill to deliver a powerful kick to Koga's chest, making him spit blood and acknowledge Noel's strength. On the verge of unconsciousness, Koga recalls his painful childhood, where he felt like a burden and believed no one cared for him. This sense of worthlessness followed him into his life as a gladiator, where survival came at the cost of his freedom. Despite growing stronger, Koga remained shackled to others' commands. Declared the loser by Finocchio Barzini, Koga reflects on Noel's unshakable confidence even as a member of the weakest class. Koga wonders what Noel sacrificed to achieve such strength, imagining that if he had that resolve, he might have fought for freedom or love. Koga's sole desire was to match that man's strength. After their fight, Noel declares his mission finished and departs. Laios acknowledges Noel's power, thanking him, but Noel refuses repayment or Gambino support. Laios begins to grasp Koga's admiration for Noel. Later, Alma treats Noel's injuries, criticizing his reckless use of the Thundering Roar, but Noel defends his focus on victory. Alma insists a leader must be cautious and Noel apologizes, promising to improve in honor of his grandfather. Alma urges him to trust her, though Noel dismisses their bond. Reflecting on the Gambino's fall and the freed girl, Noel feels at peace. Finocchio Barzini praises Noel's victory and offers him a position in the Luciano family, even leadership of the Gambinos. Barzini uses a desperate tactic to force the young Punisher-ranked reconnaissance specialist, known as the Mad Clown, into compliance. Though weak in hand-to-hand combat, the Clown's unique abilities make him a formidable foe. After Noel rejects Barzini's offer twice, Barzini threatens to take his heart, a move Noel knows would mean certain death. However, Barzini reveals the heart remains connected to both Noel and Finocchio. If the Clown moves beyond 5 meters from it or destroys it, Noel will die instantly. Barzini justifies this extreme measure, believing Noel could one day endanger the Luciano family. Yet Noel stands firm, even mocking the situation with a cynical smile, knowing his heart will only return if Finocchio undoes the ability. Noel challenges the Clown, asserting that killing him now would tarnish his reputation as head of the Barzini or Luciano family. While eliminating a potential threat might seem practical, it risks Finocchio's credibility, exposing his fear of a mere boy. Noel declines, declaring himself king and answering to no one. Finocchio jokes about never opposing him and warns Noel to stay true to his ambitions. Noel brushes it off, confident in his path. Meanwhile, Barzini mocks Albert Gambino's fall, condemning him to a humiliating life of servitude. The next day, Noel makes Koga his servant but demands strength, not weakness. When asked about his future, Koga admits he's only ever known servitude. Koga decides to stand by Noel, supporting his goals and joining him as a fierce ally. Noel, recognizing this, welcomes Koga into the Blue Beyond group. The team begins training with their new member, taking on a battalion of armed goblins. Using his strategic skills, Noel instructs Alma to weaken the rear goblins while Koga handles the front lines. Alma's armor-piercing attack helps Koga break through, but before he can face the goblin general, Alma defeats the chief. Annoyed, Koga complains about her impatience, while Alma defends her quick actions. Noel intervenes, reminding them teamwork matters and rewards are shared. He praises their debut and announces plans to register Blue Beyond as an official clan, allowing them to take higher-paying state jobs. Holding the symbol of his rank advancement to B, Noel envisions leading the most powerful clan and achieving the ultimate goal of reaching the 7 stars regalia. The next morning, Noel asked a maid to bribe the owner to smooth future dealings. Just then, an older man named Harold Jenkins, an inspector from the Seekers Guild, introduced himself. They sat and shared wine, with Harold praising Noel's craftsmanship. Noel credited his grandfather's legacy and his team. Changing the topic, Noel inquired why the inspector had come, since he'd already shared everything about the tragedy in his homeland. Harold then showed a photo of the Lord who had destroyed Noel Stalin's home. Recognizing him, Noel mentioned that the Lord's body and his grandfather's battle axe vanished that day. Harold explained that the Night Rage clan had tried to defeat the Lord but was wiped out. Later, the Supreme Dragon was sent, but the Lord disappeared. Unlike most beasts that invade by fate, this one acted on its own. It was the same Lord who killed Noel's grandfather, the Great Over Death. This Lord had reached level 13 and could become a new Valiant, one of 10 Lords capable of destroying the world. The last Valiant, Cocytus the Silver Fish, emerged 40 years ago, destroying 3 nations before being defeated by the Bloody Sword Federation. Harold believed the boy, Noel, bore a striking resemblance to his grandfather Brandon, especially in his eyes. Harold, who had been close to Brandon, wanted to check on Noel as the boy would soon turn 15 and take the test to become a seeker. Before leaving, Noel asked Harold to remember his face as that of the future most powerful seeker. Returning to the present, Noel walked with Alma and Koga into a building. Koga, visibly nervous, worried about offending the inspector, prompting Noel to reassure him. Alma joked that failure might lead to seppuku, escalating Koga's panic. Suddenly, a noise startled them, but it was only the inspector entering. Harold reviewed the report, noting the group had secured a base and a 20 million guarantee, but still needed to prove their achievements, though he trusted their abilities. Noel revealed his plan and reassured Harold that he would reach rank B once his application was approved. Alma quickly pointed out that she was already rank B, leaving only Koga at rank C on their team. Harold confirmed their clan's name as Blue Beyond and ended the meeting. When Koga questioned if that was all, Harold confirmed and rejected their clan application. Meanwhile, far away, two soldiers watched in disbelief as one man defeated a level 12 Abyssal Lord. One soldier explained that Zeke Feinstein, the deputy master of the one-star Regalia clan Supreme Dragon, was known as the Empire's strongest. Back at the meeting, the guild inspector revealed he was looking for stronger seekers, stating that meeting the basic requirements for forming a clan wasn't enough. He then shared a secret. A massive mana flow in the Empire's west was close to critical, expected to erupt within a year and summon a level 13 Abyssal Lord, which could devastate the land. Koda asked if it could be stopped, but Harold explained that disrupting the mana flow would cause destructive tremors, making the land uninhabitable. Their victory over Kosegas, the silver fish, had kept the Empire safe, but the future remained uncertain. They needed to utilize every resource for this battle, from the Empire's elite seekers to the prized regalia of the leading clans. With titles of distinction, these clans possessed the finest skills, such as Supreme Dragon-level Constitution and Universe Cave-level Sword Mastery. Despite this, Harold Jenkins, who had witnessed a valiant firsthand, declared there was no guarantee of victory. Thus, they sought clans that could offer immediate support, leaving no time to train novices like the boys from Blue Beyond. Upon hearing this, Noel Stalin stood, acknowledging the inspector's dissatisfaction but making it clear this was only temporary. After the seeker departed, Harold, bowing his head, questioned where Noel inherited his stubborn nature. Brandon Stalin, appearing youthful, claimed the boy got it from him. The inspector admitted he had high hopes for Noel. Outside, Koga questioned why Noel accepted rejection so easily, calling it surrender. However, Noel firmly clarified he hadn't given up but saw this as their opportunity to excel. He pointed out the undeniable threat of the Valiant's magic to humanity, but also their potential. Defeating Kosedas, the silver fish, had greatly advanced the Empire's standard of living, with its heart transformed into a device generating endless fresh water. Such victories elevated magical engineering, making the Seekers revered heroes of society. The group wasn't just about protecting people, they aimed to drive progress for all humanity. Noel was eager to join the Regalia as soon as possible. Coco doubted they'd make it in time, and Alma mentioned that Talker predicted it would happen within a year. However, Stalin confidently claimed they'd succeed in 6 months, shocking his teammates. His confidence stemmed from their team's unique strengths: an unbeatable swordsman from the Far East, the granddaughter of a legendary assassin, and the Overdeath itself. But Noel knew these assets weren't enough. To join the Regalia, they'd first need to build their reputation and establish a clan. Meanwhile, a journalist reported a major headline: Zeke, the Supreme Dragon, had defeated a level 12 Abyssal Lord. Inspired, Noel realized they needed a similarly bold achievement to draw attention. Determined, he headed to the Seekers Guild, choosing the Strategist class. After completing the ritual, Noel gained incredible cognitive abilities to analyze battles and predict outcomes with precision. Later, on the street, Noel spotted Zeke Feinstein, who was surrounded by admirers. Hearing of Noel's reputation, Zeke greeted him warmly, and Noel reflected that there were only 3 X-rank seekers in the capital. The head of the Pandemonium clan, Leo Aiden, known as King's Lair, and the leader of the Supreme Dragon, Victor Krauser, met with Zeke Feinstein, who referred to Noel as the grandson of the legendary Overday. Zeke mentioned hearing the boy fought the Gambino family, but Noel denied it, saying he was mistaken. Zeke, however, was sure Stalin was involved. Dropping his mask, Noel sarcastically pointed out that Zeke, the Vice Master of the Supreme Dragon, was going through all this just to invite an unnamed seeker. Zeke then made a direct offer to Noel, who rejected it, saying he didn't work for anyone. Noel insisted that if he ever joined a clan, it would be for the strongest leader, and suggested Zeke prove his strength by defeating Leo, the Pandemonium Master. Aware that a fight could be fatal for one or both, Zeke took the challenge as a compliment and walked away. Later, a man remarked that Zeke was in town, ranked as the second strongest seeker in the region. Zeke confronted the man for the ranking. He had never fought Leo, but the thought of being considered weaker terrified him. Justifying that Leo had defeated more lords, the Supreme Dragon member ignored him and threw him into space. Meanwhile, Noel noticed the man's weakness. Alma, training with Licia, lost another simulated duel, prompting Licia to advise her to be more patient and protect her rear guard, using Noel as an example. Ophelia, a friend of Licia's, arrived in the forest and met Alma. Licia introduced Ophelia as a member of the Wayne Knights and an archer from her village. Ophelia then introduced her team, Keem, a lancer, Vaclav, a beast summoner, and Leon Frederick, their leader. Ophelia assured Alma they could rely on each other, especially with dangerous figures like Noel Stalin, leader of Blue Beyond, rumored to have betrayed his allies and had mafia ties. Leon reprimanded Ophelia for judging based on rumors, and she apologized. Afterward, Ophelia left to get food. Licia apologized for her friend's behavior, but Alma wasn't upset, as much of it was true. Meanwhile, Noel met with Loki to discuss his service, scanning a list of B-rank seekers. His interest was piqued by Leon Frederick's name. The Wayne Knights celebrated their mission's success, with Leon the center of attention. With a sly smile, Noel observed that even powerful seekers had vulnerabilities like Zeke, and he was determined to rise to the top. In a chilling vision, a man imagines a woman lying on the ground, her gaze fixed on a corpse. This haunting image lingers in the mind of Hugo Capilia, also known as the Puppeteer Controller, now prisoner number 113 in a high-security jail. On this day, Hugo was surprised by an unexpected visit from Noel Stalin, who remarks on his weight. Irritated by the small talk, Hugo brusquely replies that it's none of Noel's concern. But Noel insists it is, as he has no intention of recruiting a frail man for his future clan. Aware of Hugo's abilities, Noel remains undeterred even as Hugo, awaiting execution for his notorious crimes, dismisses the idea as futile. Once a brilliant and solitary seeker capable of manipulating multiple puppets in battle, Hugo gained fame for his intellect and independence. At the height of his career, he shocked everyone by retiring to become a successful doll maker, but the incident leading to his imprisonment shattered his life. Convinced of Hugo's value, Noel demonstrates his influence, snapping his fingers to summon a guard who apologizes for a delayed tea service, acting as if the officer is under his command. Hugo, intrigued, asks if Noel bribed the guard to act this way, but the truth is more sinister. Noel holds incriminating evidence against the officer, forcing his compliance in exchange for silence. It's not just this guard. Noel controls all the prison staff, and preparations for Hugo's escape are complete. Despite this, Hugo appears sad, prompting Noel to ask why. Hugo admits he'd like to leave prison, but has no intention of aligning with Stalin, as he despises the Seekers for their violence and arrogance. He views Noel not just negatively, but as a cold, merciless snake, playing with his prey before striking. Noel responds cynically, claiming he doesn't care if that sounds like a compliment. Hugo clarifies it's far from one. Unshaken, Noel declares he'll return, likening himself to a persistent snake, and assures Hugo he'll join him eventually. Afterward, Noel leads his companions to the Rockbird's Beak, a bar frequented by top-tier seekers. Upon entering, the patrons glare, mistaking Noel for a woman. Edgar, a seeker, approaches and comments on her unfamiliar presence. Annoyed, Noel corrects him yet again, stating firmly that he's a man. The large man denies the claim, arguing that Noel couldn't be the person in question since he lacks facial scars. Stalin counters sharply, saying if scars define a man, then Edgar might as well be a powerless little girl. Furious, Edgar vows he won't lose just because Noel knows his weaknesses and had time to prepare. Stalin strikes deeper, revealing that Edgar is about to become a father, something Noel shouldn't have known. Shocked, Edgar is further rattled when Stalin threatens to ruin him if he continues this game. Edgar finally retreats, smiling but silent. Noel Stalin thanks the crowd for their warm welcome and introduces himself as a leader of the Blue Beyond. The group relaxes, enjoying unique dishes and traditional sake from Vagra, Koga's homeland. While his companions eat, Stalin stays focused, his sights set on defeating the Wing Knights and hitting the jackpot. Meanwhile, Ophelia uses telepathy to comment on Alma, mistaking her for a novice. Alma warns Noel to be careful, as Ophelia seems to dislike him. Seeing an opportunity, Noel introduces himself to the elf. Hearing his name, Ophelia clenches her fists in anger, recalling how he once betrayed his former companions by selling them as slaves. He calmly explains that working with the mafia brought in good money, adding that even mobsters value loyalty. Hearing this, the elf charges at the leader of the Blue Beyond, but Koga blocks her. Undeterred, she accuses the swordsman of being too loyal to a leader who treats him like a pawn. Tsukishima, in no mood for games, warns her to watch her words unless she wants to feel his katana. Just then, Leon Frederick steps in to ask what's happening. Noel explains that the elf tried to attack him, prompting Leon to bow and apologize for his companion's behavior. Noel dismisses the apology, saying Ophelia needs to learn not to attack people, even if she's as dull as a door. Leon demands an apology for the insult, but Noel refuses. Ophelia counters that reasoning with Noel is pointless since he's, well, Noel Stalin. The mention of his name changes Frederick's expression. He criticizes Noel for not valuing his companions, but Noel doubles down, mocking them and declaring that Leon will pay for thinking he's the moral authority. Frustrated, Leon leaves the argument, while the other seekers at the bar watch the scene with unease. Alma remarks that Noel has truly become a villain, and Koga fears they've crossed a line. Noel reassures everyone that everything is going according to plan, revealing a sinister strategy that shocks his comrades with its ruthlessness. He emphasizes that in the world of Seekers, the weak are preyed upon and only the strong survive. Meanwhile, in Harold Jenkins' office, Marion grows impatient, convinced Leo Eden should lead the troops against Valiant due to his remarkable strength. Yet Harold surprises her by endorsing Noel Stalin, despite previously rejecting his clan's formalization. Harold proposes a bet. If Leo becomes Supreme Commander first, Harold will step down as family head. If Noel wins, Marion must attend spell school to become a top-tier inspector. Marion accepts. Elsewhere, Keem observes drunken revelry in the streets, reflecting on a childhood memory of defending Lon, a boy who refused to resort to violence even when others wronged him, believing peace was the better path. Keem had been self-reliant since he was a kid, striving to become the strongest seeker, while Leon doubted he could ever be as formidable. Despite Keem's encouragement, Leon wasn't easily convinced. Yet during their childhood, Keem inspired Leon by vowing they would both become seekers and always uphold what was right. Though Keem showed natural leadership, he lacked something unique to Leon, something neither of them could pinpoint back then. Leon, on the other hand, simply wanted to matter. Over time, their shared dream took shape as they fought alongside teammates Ophelia and Vaclav, realizing their true potential. Leon mastered his primary ability, a skill that immobilized monsters, giving him a vision of a fair and just world. Using this power, he even defeated an Agitar, a forest dragon with an abyssal depth level of 7, proving they had ascended within the Seeker ranks. Initially called Twilight Glint, they soon renamed themselves the Winged Knights, with Leon, also known as Celestial Wings, emerging as the leader. Keem believed Leon was destined for greatness. In the present, as Keem shares drinks with Leon, he muses that they might envy Noel Stalin, who became a seeker and casually entered the Bird's Beak Rock Bar, a place the Winged Knights had worked hard for years to access. Leon, caught between self-awareness and innocence, admits he might have felt jealousy but regrets not realizing it sooner. He acknowledges the talker's brilliance despite disagreeing with his methods. Keem, unwilling to quietly accept nonsense, shows the group the guild's letter urging teams with solid records to quickly form clans. Leon mentions wanting to discuss this with his partner at the bar, but the clash with Noel Stalin disrupted the conversation. Meanwhile, the team had already agreed to leave the decision to Leon, though he resents feeling like a figurehead. His partner reassures him that his leadership matters deeply. The two toast the future clan, Winged Knights, but when they formally apply, Harold Jenkins denies them. If it had been a regular time, they would have easily qualified. The inspector explains that a Valiant will appear in a year, so the guild is being stricter about who can form a clan. Keem argues that they defeated an Agitar and are known as Dragon Slayers, but Jenkins criticizes their mindset. He believes they've always been too hesitant to advance and lack the drive to aim for higher ranks. Keem, frustrated, asks what terrible card they sent and learns it wasn't the guild but a prank. Even so, Leon pleads for a chance. The inspector challenges them to defeat a beast, Dantalion, and its cursed eyes with an abyssal depth level of 8, while competing with Noel Stalin's group for the clan spot. If you're enjoying the journey of this series, please hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss any updates. All of your support helps me to keep bringing more high-quality recaps.